Hi, everyone. I'm Sparrow Alden. I'm thrilled to be with you for another day of Time Camp with my good friend Sharon Hoff, who is our questioner and commenteer. I'm your fellow reader and discussionista, and we love Madeline L'Engle's book, A Wrinkle in Time. Hold on while I adjust my camera a little bit so that you're looking at the pretty part of my office. Today I'm broadcasting from Vermont, from my pretty office in Norwich. I have a great view of the woods behind me. It's a lovely day, and it was supposed to be. I have a slow connection. You know what? If I hide my webcam, you won't be able to see my face, but the quality of the broadcast is going to be better. So for today, I'm going to hide my webcam. Hold on. There we go. That should have improved things. I'm going to start my presentation because what's interesting is the slides. And then I'm going to make it so I can see Sharon's messages to me. There we go. The sound is better now. Thank you very much. Thank you for participating in the poll, by the way. We even have a note from our friends in Utah that they have just about every answer, that they are split on their answers. There was not one voice with which they spoke. And Sharon just wants everyone to know that if she were able to vote, she would vote for liverwurst and cream cheese sandwiches because she actually likes them very much. So delicious. Okay. Chapter 10, Absolute Zero. We have just escaped from Camazotz, or we are about to. Remember yesterday I stopped a couple minutes before the end? Yeah, let's move on from there. Mrs. Whatsit had said, Meg, I give you your faults. They're in tremendous danger. Charles Wallace has gone into the mind of it. They've gotten father out, but it turned out, oh, not seeing my screen. Fascinating. Hold on. Can you folks hear my voice? Oh. All right, I think I've clicked the share the screen button again. Oh, good, you can hear me. There we go. Silly screen. Ridiculous object. I'll go backwards because it always makes me very amused to see that Sharon Hoff is our commentator. Charles Wallace has gone into the mind of it. Father has been rescued, but that didn't magically fix everything. Calvin and Meg are resisting it. They're in the pulsing red room. And Mrs. Whatsit said, I give you your faults. I want to hear from you guys. What do you remember from the story so far could be counted as Meg's faults? List them out, and Sharon will send them on to me. She can get very angry. Nice one. What else we got? See a lot of answers coming in. Nice point. She can be stubborn. She can be uncooperative. She can be, well, that's very, oh, Natalie, super dramatic, melodramatic. Like when she has those big emotions for really not very big events. And how interesting that, you know, she's told she's stubborn, sure. But on the inside, she's just standing up for herself. And sometimes you need someone to be stubborn, hyper focused. Ooh, focusing right in on what is going on and maybe missing the big picture. Sure. She's been told she has all kinds of faults. Let's click along. This is a quote from the book. What were her greatest faults? Anger, impatience, stubbornness. Yes, it was to her faults that she turned to save herself now. We hold these truths to be self-evident, she shouted, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Beck, yeah, she's very emotional. These words were written by Thomas Jefferson for all of us over 200 years ago, of course. Meg memorized them because she realized what kind of powerful and interesting words they were. So she started reciting, and she is saying she is the equal of any person here, that she should have her own life, her own liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Notice, no one's guaranteeing anyone happiness, but the opportunity to pursue it. People of Camazotz don't have the opportunity to pursue a single thing. Wow. Wow. All right. And then what happens? Even, reciting the nursery rhyme was too rhythmic. It got into the rhythm of it. And then it, through Charles Wallace, argues with the words of, look, we're making everyone equal. And she has to think through it. She's being stubborn. She has dug her heels in. So is stubbornness still a fault? Do we call it stick-to-itiveness? Do we call it strength? Do we call it standing up and speaking your truth when it is serving what we want to happen? Finally, all these tricks are falling through and she needs help, and her father shouts, "What's the square root of 5?" Beck, you're absolutely right. Jill from the book The Silver Chair. A spectacular book that you and I are both the fans of. I love this. All right. I thought I would take a little moment and say, what's a square root? And I couldn't find a really good picture to illustrate my point, but imagine that you had, how many shall we have? 4 tiles. You see where the letter B is? Imagine that you had 4 tiles across and 4 tiles down, making that purple square. That would be 16 tiles. So a 4 by 4 square is 16. It means 16's square root is 4. The line B is 4 long. The square B is 16. So asking the square root is saying, what is the foundation? What is the root line on which a square of 16 could be made? And we know it's 4 because 4 by 4 is 16. Let's look at C. What if C were 5 long? 5 tiles. We know that the square must be 5 by 5 in size, which is 25. What is the root line size that 25 tile square is made of? It's 5. So the square root of 25 must be 5. Well, what's the square root of 5? Because a square of 5 tiles isn't square until you start chopping up the 5th little tile into itty bitty pieces to put along the edge of a 2 by 2. You can arrange 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 in a little square, but then you have to chop up number 5 and put it along the edges to make that shape square. So Father is making Meg solve that math problem. What's her fault? She can't do English. Why? Because she plays math games. What's her fault? She doesn't do math the way the teacher says. Why? Because her father and she played math games. What's her fault? She's not submitting to it. Why is that? Because her father shouted, What's the square root of 5? And he is making her, in her head, chop that tile into itty bitty pieces, spread it out along the edge of the 2x2, and then measure how big the itty bitty pieces are inside her head, so she knows 2 point something times itself is equal to 5. It sure is a geometry class, Bella, because it's a great day, and every day with geometry in it is a great one. Okay, on we go to chapter 10. At the end of their time on Camazotz, Calvin shouted, "Tesser, sir, Tesser," because he knew Father had to know how to Tesser, so he did. Here we go. The first sign of returning consciousness was cold. Then sound. She was aware of voices that seemed to be traveling through her across an Arctic waste. Slowly, the icy sounds cleared, and she realized that the voices belonged to her father and Calvin. She did not hear Charles Wallace. She tried to open her eyes, but the lids would not move. She tried to sit up, but she could not stir. She struggled to turn over, to move her hands, her feet, but nothing happened. She knew that she had a body, but it was as lifeless as marble. She heard Calvin's frozen voice. Her heart is beating so slowly. Her father's words sounded brittle in her ears, as though they were being chipped out of ice. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you observe? Yes, Bella, that's exactly it. Ixchel, which is the title of this slide, is the place where the octopus things were. Someone is seeing cold, they're feeling cold, or aware of cold, that she can't move. She can hear, so she can feel, she can hear. She tried to open her eyes, but the lids would not move. Oh, yeah, Natalie and friends in Utah, I completely agree. How scary that would be to not be able to move. Lifeless as marble, which is not just a stone, it's a white stone. I'm here in Vermont, so I can talk about marble. It's a white stone that looks like ice. In fact, if you're driving across Vermont and you go past a marble quarry, you always have to think to yourself, is that a big old slab of ice? And oh no, that's just the marble quarry. And it's a stone that's kind of fragile. I mean, it's strong, it's rock. But if you drop it the wrong way, it shatters and shears off very easily. I wanted to take a sec. Good. Marble, lifeless. Very good. I wanted to point out, do you see those 3 dots between she heard Calvin's frozen voice and her father's words sounded brittle in her ears? 3 dots means, and here we skipped some words. So if it's in the middle of what looks like a sentence, there are only a few words skipped, but I've been trying to put it in that place like at the beginning of a paragraph to say, I skipped more than a paragraph to get there. But I wanted to compare Calvin's frozen voice and her father's words being chipped out of ice. Wow. Great imagery. Yeah, Katie would definitely be scared if she couldn't move. I agree with you. Calvin's voice again. How did we stay out, sir? How did we manage as long as we did? Father, because it's completely unused to being refused. That's the only reason I could keep from being absorbed too. No mind has tried to hold out against it for so many thousands of centuries that certain centers have become soft and atrophied through lack of use. And by centers, I believe he means nerve clusters, certain brain thought centers of the sentient beings who have been shadowed by it. So this answers a question that we had a day or two ago. Can the people of Camazotz resist? We noticed that the people on Camazotz, like Meg and Calvin, could resist, but the people from there, for thousands of centuries, certain centers of their brains have become soft and atrophied through lack of use. Wow. There's another way. Yes, Jubilee, those are called ellipsis points, the 3 dots. You see it, Calvin's voice again, and then I 3-dotted. There's another way to read that line, though. No mind has tried to hold out against it for so many thousands of centuries that certain centers in the mind of it have become soft and atrophied through lack of use. If no one's resisting you, you don't have to use your power of fighting against resistance, at least not much. So interesting, there are 2 different ways to read that. Silence. A long silence. Then Calvin's voice again. Can't we do anything? Can't we look for help? Do we just have to go on waiting? Her father. We can't leave her. We must stay together. We must not be afraid to take time. I want to observe 4 different cool things in this passage, but I'll let you guys go first. What do you see in this passage that you think is cool to look at? Nice, Bella. People on Camazotz can resist, but they don't, because it sounds like the best choice. And if it has been there for hundreds of years, they don't know for sure that there's anything better. They may not even have conceived of anything better. Very good point, Bella. Calvin is a man of action. Calvin is trying to help. Maybe he's feeling a little bit anxious, but I think your interpretation, Natalie and friends in Utah, is the stronger one. Calvin's an athlete. He wants to physically do stuff. That's how he listens. That's how he learns. That's how he engages with the world. It's by physically doing stuff. Nice. And that was something I had never noticed. Beautifully said. I love that. I noticed that Father is giving the same advice as Mrs. Which. We must stay together. And we must not be afraid to take time. Why? Natalie, what about that contradiction? He's saying they need to stay together, but they left Charles Wallace. What a horrible choice that must have been. I see that Meg is about to give in to this terrible thing. And if I leave now, I am leaving Charles Wallace. What do? I hope that none of us ever have such a terrible decision to make. Why must we not be afraid to take time? I can think of 2 different reasons. First, I know that when you're going slow and steady and deliberate and thinking things through, that actually saves you time because you're being thorough and finding what you need to find. Slow can make you be complete and do the job once instead of having to do it 5 times because you did it too fast. So going slow can make you fast, or steady, and steady can make you fast, and fast makes you a good responder. That's one way. What else? It's a whole new way of thinking for human beings, that it doesn't matter how much time something takes, because now they can fold time. If you need 12 hours, take 12 hours, then fold back to the 1 hour point. Wow. And then I noticed two things that Mrs. L'Engle, the writer, did. In this whole conversation that Meg is overhearing between Calvin and father, she uses this notation. Her father, full colon, those two dots up and down are called full colon. And they mean, when you're writing, full colon, you see the two dots, it means like you're planting your 2 feet and about to make a point. So he's planting his 2 feet because it's his turn to speak out. You might be writing along, there were 3 important facts. Plant your 2 feet with a colon and list them out. 1, 2, 3. And it's a format that she doesn't use anywhere else in the book, and it has something to do with Meg being frozen and things sound weird, and it's as though it's down on paper and it's coming in maybe with harsh angles coming in acutely. I don't know. The other thing I noticed is if your medium is words, if you are a novelist and you want to express that there was no sound and there were no words, how do you use words to express that there are no words, except to say there were no words? And that doesn't give your reader the experience of there being no words. She did it with those tiny little sentences, almost sentences. She just says, silence, and then stops us for a second. A long silence. And then she moves on. I thought it was fascinating the way that she used words to make it feel and sound to me like there were no words. And then father says, playing with time and space is a dangerous game. And I made that big font and centered because kids, if there is nothing else that you and I take home this week, I want to take home that playing with time and space is a dangerous game. And please only do it with your safety equipment. Nice note here. Meg is so out of it. The voices, it is as though the voices are assigned to speakers. She doesn't feel them speaking. She can't see them speaking. She sort of took these sharp, frozen sounds and said, that must be father. Interesting stuff. Okay, here we go. Meg could hear her father sigh. Then it was my turn. I went, and here I am, wiser and a humbler man. Who else spoke about humility, and what was the scene earlier? I think more than one character has talked about humility or demonstrated humility. Tell me. Send it to me. I want to know what you're remembering. Father in this scene is talking about when he tessered, the person who went first had been gone for a year. And then they finally said, oh, we don't know what happened. Okay, the next person has to go. And we never find out where that first person wound up. Tell me about humility. In this scene, Father is saying, people, we should not be playing with time and space yet. We don't know enough. And now that feeling, oh, nice point. Bella points out, Calvin and Meg are probably feeling humble too. We thought we could do this great big thing. And now, not only can we not do a thing, we are feeling not smaller, but we're feeling our relative size in the world. And yeah, Mrs. Who said things about humility to Charles, and so did Mrs. Watson. They were warning Charles Wallace, don't be proud. Pride is going to get you in trouble. Do you remember when Mrs. Watson changed into the beautiful magical being? Oh, yeah. And Calvin dropped to his knees and she said, not to me, Calvin. No, never to me. that expression of humility, which has, that actual quote has been with me for years. I never forgot it in between times reading the book. Okay, here's something interesting that her father is doing to help Meg. He sounded quite calm, as though there were nothing extraordinary in having her completely paralyzed. At the quiet of his voice, she felt calmer. What are fathers' expressed emotions like? You remember from our threads? It might not be what he's feeling deep, deep, deep inside, but what is he expressing? Calm, nothing extraordinary. I'm thinking about my threads. He's kind of a happy medium. He's not necessarily like cheerful, crazy happy, but he's happy medium. He's being calm. There's nothing extraordinary. You're paralyzed. No worry. And he's not saying that. Yes, Jenny, the happy medium. I'm with you. He is being moderate, and he's not doing it to conform. He's not doing it for someone else's expectations. Here's the real reason to be able to cultivate a happy medium, because he's able to spread calm with his quiet voice. And okay, I have tried not to give you guys homework, but here's your homework for some time in the next year, right? When you see a situation getting really kind of excited or angry or panicky or dangerous, see if you can express calm. In my line of work, we call it the non-anxious presence. If you just, it's like having a great big mellow dog as your emotional support dog. You know, if someone in this room can be calm and fine with everything, the calm spreads out like ripples on a pond. All right, let's see what comes next. She realized with a start that her body and limbs were cold, that not only was she not warm, she was frozen from head to toe. And it was this that had made her father's words seem like ice, that had paralyzed her. I'm frozen, she said faintly. Camazotz hadn't been this cold, a cold that cut deeper than the wind on the bitterest of winter days at home. She was away from it. But this unexplained iciness was almost as bad. Her father had not saved her. How fascinating that she goes right from something went wrong and my body's frozen to her father had not saved her. She had counted so much on him. I have a great note here from Sharon that when parents or authority figures exude calm, that means sort of give off that calm vibration, it can be very powerful. There was a president of the United States many years ago, in a time when a lot of Americans were panicking, who just hopped on the radio. And back when radio was the way you communicated, he said, you know, the fires here in my office is going, and I thought I'd sit down and have a fireside chat with you and let you know the only thing to fear is fear itself. Keep working the farms, keep looking for jobs. If you panic, everything's going to fall apart, but so We know how to work hard, and we're going to pull out of this together. And he said it in such a calm, reassuring, fireside chat kind of way that he helped the whole country relax. Yeah, kids who are leaders in their social groups have the same effect. You just sort of mellow something down and go, nah, not a big deal. Just sort of let your happy medium show. You got it, Jubilee. I was talking about Franklin Roosevelt. What a cool president to say, all right, I'm the great big high big deal guy with whatever in the whole White House. Nah, I'm just going to light a fire and sit by my fire and talk to you fellow Americans like friends, because we're all friends in one big community. And he just ratcheted it down a notch. That's my challenge to you, that when you are in your social group or your class group, that you just calm it down. Practice doing that. It takes practice. That's okay. You can learn it. Now she was able to look around a little, and everything she could see was rusty and gray. There were trees edging the field in which she lay, and their leaves were the same brown as the grass. There were plants that might have been flowers, except that they were dull and gray. In contrast to the drabness of color, to the cold that numbed her, the air was filled with a delicate spring-like fragrance, almost imperceptible as it blew softly against her face. Sounds like a very beautiful fragrance. I thought this passage, where everything is looking gray and dull, made me think, what if the beings here don't have sight like we do? On the left, there's a bison standing around in Yellowstone National Park, taken through a camera that was recording the same wavelengths of light that we see. But if we could see only slightly different wavelengths of light moving toward the red spectrum and seeing infrared, the picture on the right is what we would see. It could be that that dull gray world in the spectrum of someone else's vision is really vivid and exciting. I just thought I'd bring in that little factoid. All Meg's faults were uppermost in her now, and they were no longer helping her. You remember, as she got unfrozen, she was whining and complaining, and she was upset, and she was blaming Father, and you did terrible things. And she was not being very joyful about finding and releasing her father, or kind to him for saving her life or soul. So I wanted to remind us she was being very faulty, very stubborn and not thinking, and kind of a jerk. All right. Whew. I want everyone to shake their hands. I'm shaking my hands, but my camera is not, so you can't see me doing it. I want you to rub your face. If you need to stretch a bunch and take an energy break, please do. And Sharon, would you please send me the correct time? That's what time check means. It is, oh, it's 34 past the hour. I have time. Because I wanted to read a long passage. So I'm going to do that and hop over to my book rather than typing the whole thing out, because it would take about five screens. I just will read it right off here. Okay. Because I'm reading Wrinkle in Time on Kindle with you. Why did we go without Charles Wallace? Did we just leave him there? The words that were not really hers came out cold and accusing. We didn't just leave him, her father said. Remember that the human brain is a very delicate organism, and it can be easily damaged. See, Meg? Calvin crouched over her, tense and worried. If your father had tried to yank Charles away when he tested us, and if it had kept grabbing hold of Charles, it might have been too much for him, and we'd have lost him forever. We had to do something right then. Why? It was taking us. You and I were slipping, and if your father had gone on trying to help us, he wouldn't have been able to hold out much longer either. You told him to Tesser, Meg charged Calvin. There isn't any question of blame, Mr. Murray cut in severely. Can you move yet? All Meg's faults were uppermost in her now, and they were no longer helping her. No, and you'd better take me back to Camazotz and Charles Wallace quickly. You're supposed to be able to help. Disappointment was as dark and corrosive in her as the black thing. The ugly words tumbled from her cold lips, even as she herself could not believe that it was to her father, her beloved, longed-for father, that she was talking in this way. If her tears had not still been frozen, they would have gushed from her eyes. She had found her father, and he had not made everything all right. Everything kept getting worse and worse. If the long search for her father was ended and he wasn't able to overcome all their difficulties, there was nothing to guarantee that it would all come out right in the end. There was nothing left to hope for. She was frozen, and Charles Wallace was being devoured by it, and her omnipotent father was doing nothing. She teetered on the seesaw of love and hate, and the black thing pushed her down into hate. You don't even know where we are, she cried out at her father. We'll never see Mother or the twins again. We don't know where Earth is, or even where Camazotz is. We're lost out in space. What are you going to do? She did not realize that she was as much in the power of the black thing as Charles Wallace. Wow, she was in the power of the black thing, which was making her say those mean, impatient, horrible, petulant, whiny things. If we thought Charles Wallace was a zombie on Camazotz, imagine how bad it would have been if his brain was on a different planet, right? If Father had tessered him all the way to Ixchel, and the place to change his brain was back on Camazotz, and they don't know how to get back to Camazotz. They don't know how to go anywhere. They don't even know where they are. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to hop back to presentation mode. And this is her father speaking. Oh, does it take orders from the black thing? Or is it the black thing? Is it the black thing, the same thing? Or is it working for the black thing? What do people think? Send Bella your different opinions and we'll see if we can put together one picture. Meanwhile, what is Father saying? Instead of getting all frustrated with her because she is in the influence of the black thing, he says, we were sent here for something. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Wow. This is the first mention of God in the entire book. Now, I know because I've been able to read some great articles by Mrs. L'Engle that she herself was a very religious and devout person. She didn't write stories about God as she understood him or the people in the stories that she loved from her scriptures, but she wrote about hope and all things working together for good for those who are called together. You're sent here for something. And that's how she wrote about her religion, with not about saying, I have a religion and that might be different from yours. She said something universal about love and goodness. And that just makes my heart go all happy. Happy heart. Sparrow has a happy heart. Very good. What beautiful words he used. Here is, and it's a little bit ahead of where we were reading, but here is one artist's image of the beings on Ixchel. They're very tall. They're all tentacly and warm. See, one of them has Meg in his arms. Tell me, what do you suppose you'd do if 3 of us suddenly arrived on your home planet? Interesting. In the movie, Natalie's group says, Aunt Beast is mentioned before it would have happened. So when someone the other day said that when they wrinkled, they might also change time. And that was Katie. Sorry, that's not the Natalie group. That's Katie. I thought it would be very interesting to see an artist's picture of these beings at Ixchel. One of them came up to Meg and squatted down on its huge haunches beside her, and she felt utter loathing and revulsion as it reached out a tentacle to touch her face. But with the tentacle came the same delicate fragrance that moved across her with the breeze, and she felt a soft, tingling warmth go all through her that momentarily assuaged her pain. She felt suddenly sleepy. I must look as strange to it as it looks to me, she thought drowsily, and then realized with a shock that of course the beast couldn't see her at all. Nevertheless, a reassuring sense of safety flowed through her with the warmth, which continued to seep deep into her as the beast touched her. Then it picked her up, cradling her in 2 of its forearms. What did you see? That the appearance to Meg was revolting, and it turned out to be that delicate fragrance and deep warmth and a strong, safe touch. Yeah, I think there have been a number of places in the book where we talk about appearance. Father has aged tremendously, and it's still Father. Charles Wallace hasn't changed at all on the outside, and it's not Charles Wallace anymore. Mrs. Whatsit can change her appearance from one thing to another, but she's really the spirit of a star all the way on the inside. Wow, love this. I thought you would like to know that Ixchel is the name of a Mayan goddess of healing. In the next chapter, when they talk about, well, where are we? Well, you could call it Ixchel. That name is a goddess of healing. And this is an artist's rendering of that goddess. How fascinating. I'm certain that Madeline L'Engle used that name deliberately. Because this is the place where Meg gets healing. And Uriel, the archangel of clear sight, was the place where they could see all the way to the black thing. Really, really nice thing that she did there. Oop, 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 oop. I don't want to. What am I going to do? I have caught up on the character braid, and I'm very proud of it. But I think if I turn on my... we'll just look at it tomorrow. It looks pretty good. I think if I turn on my camera, that we will get the bandwidth messed up again. Okay. Sharon, would you send me a time check so I know what we can do with the rest of our time? Oh, very nice. Sharon points out, not only is it 11:45 in Arizona, that she has learned something. It's wise to take time to regroup and to tend to wounds and let people heal, even in the midst of huge crisis. They're in the middle of this story, and Charles Wallace is not safe. But maybe you can't go charging off to the rescue without healing a little bit, resting a little bit. It's interesting to note that Meg assumes they can't see, even though they can create smells and scents, and don't seem to have noses. Maybe they see in ways that doesn't occur to Meg is a sight organ. Maybe the tentacles are their things that measure and make sense out of light. Huh. Thank you very much, friends in Utah. Alrighty. I seem to have finished quite a bit earlier than I expected. But let's do a checkup. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. Snakes use their sense of smell to see. Is it true that snakes test the air with their tongues? And to taste. Okay. Wow. They use smell and taste to construct the world around them. And the eyes probably are just shadowy images coming in to fill out the details. Amazing. Well, here's a question for you as we check out. Do you feel like we have been good community? Have I been responding to your thoughts and questions in a respectful way? And do you have any questions about how the group functions together? Because I want to be responsible and check out with you guys too. And I want to always, always be sure to say thank you to Sharon, because she keeps me so beautifully organized. I could not do this without her, as we learned yesterday when there were a couple of minutes when I, in a panicking manner, had to do without her. Ooh. Okay. I think it is about 10 minutes before 3. So you gotta send me questions. Ooh, I think it's been a good community. Jenny, thank you for that. She says, and that you, meaning me, Sparrow, have been respectful and feels like others have as well. I think we have been listening to each other's ideas. I think we have been maybe incorporating them, putting a bit of this idea and a bit of that idea together. Would you guys please send along to, there we go, camp@signumu.org, photos of some of your artwork, because I would love to see what you guys have been doing. You've had projects. I know there's been an origami project, and you might have a thank you poster for our donors. Oh, yeah. Do you have any insights from your journals? Would anyone like to, well, you don't want to read aloud. I could, if there's someone who would like to read from their journal, I could turn on your microphone. Do we have someone who would like to read? Or just type in a thought, something that came to you. How have your journals been going? Do you like keeping them? How many of you like to do written journals? How many of you like to do drawing or coloring or painting or sketching journals? Sometimes I like to pretend that I do a knitting journal, but it's not a journal, it's just my knitting. Oh, and definitely if you've got stuff in your art or sketch or watercolor or whatever you're using journal that makes a great picture, please, yes, do send it along. Yes, I'd love to see it, because this is so much fun. I now have friends all over North America. Do we have friends who are from places other than North America? That would be so cool. I've got book buddies all over the place, and it's very exciting to me. We've got some folks in Utah who like knitting and crocheting. That might be Natalie personally. Natalie, if you are on something called Ravelry.com, the knitting and crocheting website, go ahead and look me up, where my name is Gazebo Gal. On the Knitters website, you get like cool secret spy names. It's very fun. Oh, the library group in Utah says they have been talking a lot about how the 1960s, that's when Ms. L'Engle was writing, play a big part in what's happening to people on Camazotz. There was a lot of talk about conformity. Oh, the knitting comment was from Bella. Sorry, guys. That's right, Bella, you like making socks. Well done, Natalie. In the 1950s and 60s, the questions about conformity were huge. What if someone's skin isn't the right color? What if someone's gender isn't the right gender? What if someone's ideas are not the right ideas? And there were people who grabbed onto power who wanted other people to do what they said. And there were, and then this book got written, which was part of saying, look, conforming to important things like the speed limit or the traffic laws is good, but look what happens if everyone's bouncing a ball at the same time. They don't have a mind. If everyone's wearing their hair the same, oh, how creepy was it in the movie that they even had the hair the same? It was really well done. Beck also likes knitting. I am glad to hear that. So send me a picture of your knitting. I love knitting. Friends, thank you. I am Sparrow Alden, your fellow reader and discussionista. My good friend Sharon Hoff has been organizing your questions and is our commenteer. Tonight, I'm going to be looking at Aunt Beast, which is chapter 11. If you have time to glance back at the chapter, please do. I know most people love Aunt Beast. Oh, and tomorrow's poll will be about whether you say aunt or aunt, or you just call your parents' sisters by their first name. I'll have a whole what do you call your parents' sisters poll tomorrow. That will be fun. I think I'm stopping a little bit early, but I guess that's how it happened. Ooh, some people say auntie or auntie, Auntie M. Fascinating. Very nice. Thank you all. We're stopping a little bit early, and I look forward to tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Everyone, I love time traveling with you. Take care.